Hey guys, welcome to the Ranking Heroes, a podcast where we discuss different strategies with the experts behind them. I'm Nebojša, your host, and here we have Nenad Stamenkovic as my co-host. Today we have a very special guest with over a decade of experience in SEO, Peter Rota. Thanks for joining us, and it's a pleasure having you on this podcast. So to kick off this properly, we want to hear more about what you do and what first sparked your interest in SEO and how did you transition from internship to running your own SEO services, becoming a manager, and do wonderful things for the clients.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks again for having me. So, currently in my day job, I head up the technical SEO for Hub International. They're an insurance brokerage. So, I've been with them for almost 2 years now, but could do anything from technical SEO. We do a lot of content optimization, also working with developers. And then on the side, I do some freelance slash kind of retainer work. So I work with local clients, e-commerce, and then I also do one-off type work on Upwork. And then as you found me, I post weekly on LinkedIn as well and kind of just share my experts because I feel indebted to the SEO community for providing their value. But how I got into SEO, I think, was kind of like most people. Um, I went to school for sports management, and then after I basically created a sports blog, it was kind of like the more controversial things going on in sports. And one day I was like, oh, like I would love to promote this. And I did a search for digital marketing. And then they kept mentioning SEO. And I was like, oh, well, let me try that. And like I had some success. So I tried to better optimize the content. And then, so this is in 2011. So I was like posting on Reddit and it got a good amount of traffic there. Um, and then I basically felt like I definitely love to get an internship and see like if I can like get any experience there. So I worked for like it was an IT company and then like a digital marketing agency for 2 internships and then another agency. And then it kind of just spun into a career and I'm definitely happy how it worked out. I think like most SEOs, you never intended to get into it, but it's like a serendipitous discovery. I don't know that word. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it truly is. How did you opt for technical SEO? Do you have any technical background before that, or was that something that you developed along your career path?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something I got into more recently because I just enjoy how it's a lot more analysis and you're kind of trying to figure out like why is this happening certain ways and I think I just enjoy a lot of technology, so I've been using a lot of AI. I'm trying to learn more Python, but I think it's a field that's either very underutilized or people just don't think it's a big deal. So I think there's always a ton of opportunities I see. And I think I've always been interested in technology since I was growing up. So
Sorry, when you say it's underutilized, are you referring to technical SEO or AI in technical SEO?
technical SEO, I mean, I've seen everyone's like, oh, if your website's small, you don't need technical SEO. But I've worked on sites where it's like the title tag is the same on every page, or the H1's the same on every page, or it's like pages aren't indexed, or they don't have a meta description, or it's like links aren't working, forms aren't working. So it's like it's easy as an SEO to give these very like generalized statements or like such and such doesn't matter, but then it's very nuanced where it's like there's a very like each case is very unique. So I think it's yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in quickly. Like I have something to say since you said that you got into SEO by trying to promote something. We can say that you got into the SEO organically, and I think that's a good way to
Exactly.
start with SEO. So, like, since you have over a decade of experience, how has SEO changed since you started, and what do you think the next big shift will be?
Oh wow. Yeah, so I mean, like I mentioned, I've been doing it from since 2011. So I think when I started I think they had like the penguin and panda algorithms, but I mean even then there was still hyper focus on a lot of like backlink strategies. So I mean, I remember back in the day I was selling a GSA Seer like service, and had I made a good amount with that. But I think we've gone from where it's like the intent used to be, let's get people to the website and rank the content and see what happens, to now where it's like you have the content, does it engage, does it give people the answer they're looking for, are they able to like just use other parts of the website. Once they get on the page, are they able to complete your desired action? So say if you're in a blog post, do they have like a CTA or a banner somewhere pushing you back to like a money page to like sign up for something? So I think it's a lot more focused on human beings too. So I think SEO in 2011, there was a hyper focus on like jamming as many keywords as possible into things, and these tactics like article directories and all this fun stuff. And it's like,
It was a lot more technical back in the day because we knew that, I mean, in 2011, for instance, it was about that time that for instance, Google started ignoring the keyword tag that you
yes,
placed in the
meta
head.
keywords.
Yeah, but that tag was used and it was really, I mean, people abused it in order to rank for keyword, but that was the thing. You had a technical thing, you know that when you did this, that will happen.
Yeah.
But Google, from that moment on, I mean, I'm listening to you, the things that you're saying. Yes, Google really turned more to the UX side of things than it was just basic, plain technical to understand the crawlers and stuff. Tell me, during your career, have you done anything UX related?
Honestly, not a ton, but I try to just, I've read into like persuasion and like, I think, I'm not sure if I pronounced his last name correctly, it's Robert Cialdini. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely focused on just like, if I'm a user, like when I get here, am I able to like get what I need? So I've seen a lot where like content will look good on desktop, but then you have all these like on mobile, all these bulky paragraphs, and it's like most people really just skim now. So it's like, is are they able to find the information easily? I mean, are you using like social proof maybe on like a money page or conversion page? So
Mm-hmm.
like one thing I've been doing at work recently is we're trying to do more social proof and I guess UX. So we're using the wisdom of the crowd technique, where essentially it's like 1,000 people signed up for this last month. Like, so it's essentially kind of insensitizing that like this is a valuable service and people have used it. So I've definitely learned a bit about it. I mean, it's not like my full background, but I think as SEOs, you want to be dangerous enough to have some energy, but also like possess not the hyper focus on it, because it's like there's people that have whole jobs as UX and I can't replace it. But I think it's good to at
Got it.
least have some familiarity and understand like where what the intent of each page is.
Tell me now, what was the most difficult? What was your biggest challenge in terms of technical SEO that you did that you resolved?
Biggest challenge was more of a, I
You
guess, a
don't need
F.
to identify a website directly,
Yeah,
just
no,
talk
no,
about the
it's
problem.
yeah, it was more of an F up on my side, but it was an e-commerce Shopify website, and I kept seeing all these URLs getting crawled that weren't really useful, and
Slash
I
products
based
slash collections.
yeah,
Definitely
yeah.
agree.
So I accidentally ended up disavowing, not well, yeah, it was a disallowing essentially these paths that Google was using in Merchant Center, and basically ended up de-indexing all their shopping products in Merchant Center. So that was a big F up, but thankfully I fixed it in a few days and the client still I trusted me. But that was probably like my biggest F up.
How much time did you take to get it back, to get it indexed again?
A few days, but I mean, I guess my biggest challenge recently was one of the websites I was working on was a single page application JavaScript. So I had to kind of go in and just lay out all these recommendations. Like we want things in like the source code, and just um, essentially communicating with developers can sometimes be challenging because there's an aspect where it's like they want to do what's best for them, but then some of
Yes.
them don't know about SEO. So it's kind of like having a fine line between what's going to benefit both us and you. So I think definitely enterprise. It's a lot of just resources and what's going to be most impactful. So I would probably say those are the biggest challenges I probably deal with more daily and most recently.
How do you approach that part? For instance, I had similar challenges when working with software development companies. I was working for a software development
Yep.
company. So they have their whole website sped out as basically an app, and
Yep.
you have client-side rendering in JavaScript, but you need HTML, so you need HTML rendered. And when you try to communicate that with developers, they tell you, okay, just do me a layout of the page and tell me what you need where.
Yep.
Are you writing them HTML code of the page that you would like to look, I mean, that you would like all placed like that? Or do you just screenshot and mark like a specific element, hey, this should be this tag or this element or this ID or something? What's your approach in it?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had to do a ton of that, but if I was, I would most likely do screenshots.
Got it.
Essentially, another thing too is like we have Chat GPT now, so it's like I
That's
can be
what that
like,
was my follow-up
yeah,
question. Did you consider or have you used AI for it? I mean, even GPTs of a kind can actually help. That's why I'm asking.
yeah. I mean, I've used Chat GPT a lot as far as like helping out with JSON schema. So like I had certain like properties I wanted to nest, and it was basically able to like create something where it nested. But I mean, I think
Nice.
it's something I definitely use a lot because it makes things easier to explain. So like there was something where I was working on a site where they have all these buttons, but they didn't have anchor text. So I basically asked ChatGPT to like write me something up in HTML that includes an anchor, and it was able to do that. And I basically told the client like it should be like that. So I
Yeah, they
mean,
should
yeah,
use, instead of using a button like an element, they should use a and just
yeah,
have
yeah,
the
correct, yeah,
CSS around.
href, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice, nice. Good call.
Yeah, I want to ask, how do you prioritize issues in a technical SEO audit? What tends to be the most impactful changes? I know that some tools like Screaming Frog, they can suggest some issues. They can say if it's a low, moderate, or a high priority. Do you follow the tools, or do you have some, let's say, feeling that you develop from your experience?
Some prioritization scales.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it depends on the organization, but with us, I try to focus on what's going to have the biggest impact. Generally, obviously, all the time, it's not gonna. Sometimes that requires the most resources, so it's kind of being able to weigh what's going to have the biggest impact, what's going to maybe take up the whole resources. So sometimes it's like maybe something's not going to have as big of an impact, but it has less resources, so that goes higher up. But I generally have always focused on like what's going to have the biggest impact and try to find a way to tie it back to the ROI and be actionable because people will get a technical audit or something from SEM Rush these automated tools and be like, you have like not enough text on the page or like not enough HTML or like all you're missing all image tags. And it's like those things are important, but it's like, are those things really you want to get things that are going to move the needle. And once you've done that thoroughly, then you focus on these like things that maybe Google focuses on more secondary factors and kind of ranking pages and things like that.
Yeah, you have 10 pages that have low content, but all of those pages are
Right.
category pages
Yeah,
that
exactly.
are basically set to no index because
Yeah.
you don't want them
Yeah.
indexed. So what's the point of having that info that you're lacking 10 content on 10 pages when it's not even included in the strategy or are not part of their acquisition funnel? So
Yeah,
why
for
should you
sure.
even care? Yeah, but it's a good thing to know that there are people who actually see it from that can pull back and get a perspective of what this business actually wants, needs, what are their
Yeah.
goals behind it. Because it's often that when you approach an SEO agency or a consultant that does this work, yes, there are some qualities that you can get from doing an audit with that automated stuff, getting the data sets from other tools or sources, but the feedback itself and the strategy itself should be formed around your conclusions from it aligned with their business goals and stuff. But that was always a cat and mouse game. Like whenever you see people build tools that could give you those answers, but none of them can actually give you. the real answers. Like this should be prioritized. Yes, you have 20 of these issues, but these three on these specific pages are the ones that we should focus, and this is what you should be doing. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
good
By
to
the
know
way,
that there are people around that actually can do that. Can just
yeah,
move away,
yeah.
stop, and take a look at the whole picture. Haven't met
By
many
the
of them,
by
to
the
be
way,
honest.
while we are speaking about the tools, Peter, what are your go-to SEO tools?
Yeah, so I mean, I use a variety, but I use Screaming Frog a ton, which is funny. They actually, I think the SEO crawl they started in 2011, which was when I started. So I use that a ton. Google Search Console, Google Analytics, Adobe Analytics, though I'm not really a fan. Um, Ton of SEO extensions like the SEO Pro extension. There's some JavaScript extensions I use, web developer extension. There's
What's
one I think called like no follow link, where basically if you're on a page, it'll show you no follow links, which has been good in
link
my
linker?
past because I've worked on sites where it's like they're no following internal links, so it's very odd. And these were actually like important links on a page, so that's
Yeah,
been good to see that. I use a tool you may have heard of it. It's called Siteliner, which essentially will
yeah,
show you duplicate content, and
yeah.
it's really good. It shows you the instances. I use some of the tools from Merkle, technicalseo.com. They have a good suite of tools there. I really like to use the one that shows you any difference between the mobile version slash desktop version if there's changes in contents or links. Um, and then I also like to use the schema validator by Google as well as the old one by the JSON schema validator. So
Yeah, from schema.org.
yeah, schema.org. Yeah.
Follow-up question.
Yeah.
So you don't like to rely on new tools, and you don't like to expand your tool sets if you don't need to do it, actually, right?
I'm definitely
If you
open to
don't
new.
have a need for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely open to new tools. Like I mentioned, I'm using more AI, but I think sometimes it's like overkill and it's like you want to also like not have shiny object syndrome and be like, oh, there's a new tool, and then you gotta change your entire workflow. So it's like, I think there's a time and place for tools, but you also need to know which one's gonna be best for you and most helpful.
There was a funny when I was working as a link builder a
Mm.
while back. I used the same tool that you were using to check internal links
Yeah.
because I needed to see if that article is flagging all links as no follow,
Mhm.
because they
Yeah.
would probably set mine as a no follow.
Yeah.
And that tool, when new updates came for Google Chrome or for Mozilla, those tools were removed because they were breaking the policy for Google App Store, because they were
Yeah.
using like your client-side data for it.
Yeah.
So that tool became on and off on constantly on the marketplace, on the App Store,
Mhm.
and that was the thing. I completely relied on that tool, and I got really pissed when it was removed. I had to back it up. I need to upload it again into my new Chrome browser or anything. And there was a point where I just figure out if I start relying on as many tools I'm using for this job,
Mhm.
then they will be basically, my process will be locked around them. I need to rely on as less tools that I can. So there was a point where I found out that I can make a bookmarklet with
Yes. Yeah.
JavaScript, and I just place that, and it flags all the links on the page, like the ones that are no follow, the ones that are affiliate probably, or something like that. But yeah, it's good to know that when I heard you talking about tools, you were saying like Google Analytics, Google Search Console. I said yes, this is the guy. This is exactly the guy that
Yeah.
went through all of this. This is exactly the person who got pissed about it in numerous times. So yeah, hats off for it,
Yeah. I mean, I
for
think it's
refactoring
important.
your tool set.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to get the data from the source when you can, especially because Google Search Console is free.
Yeah,
It's
but the
important
data
to
you
utilize
need
it.
for the thing that you're currently working on and resolving it, and that's it. If you
Yeah.
use a tool for it, you're using a tool that can cover those questions, those issues. You don't need to. don't need to integrate a new tool for it. For instance, yes, we use Ahrefs. That
Yep.
doesn't mean that I don't use Majestic SEO, that I
Yep.
don't know how to use Moz, SEMrush, etc. But if my whole work and process revolves around it, if the data that I collect and the date and the suggestions, advices that I give to the client are based on that data, then I'm just gonna use that.
Yep.
If at any point a project needs to use SEMrush for whatever reason, yeah, okay, I'll go with it, but I won't do an export for a single project, then get data from SEMrush, Ahrefs, Majestic SEO, etc., and then try to figure out for each and every one what I'm gonna do and what are the correlations.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's good to know. I mean, one thing that I'm interested in. How do you use with those tools? How do
Mhm.
you use? Explain me, for instance, how do you use GPT with the data sets that you are using for audits or for resolving technical issues? Are you making your own prompts, saving them somewhere, or are you doing it as you go? Are you just having a conversation with a GPT?
I mean, I definitely want to integrate it more into my process, but right now it's a lot of like manual work. But I know I've seen like recently on LinkedIn, people are using Python to like utilize internal link opportunities. But right now it's a lot of um, more just manual work. But I think there'll definitely be time. But I mean, I've used like ChatGPT to basically look at Search Console and be like, tell me some of the trends you see in this data, and it's able to like get some high level like stuff like that. But a lot of it's still like manual work, unfortunately. But I think it's important to like automate and outsource things when you can. But for the most part, mine is a lot of like
Yeah,
more
until you figure
manual.
out
Yeah,
your own process and
yeah.
know that it works flawlessly, you won't automate it. Until you know that everything works, you won't automate it, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think too it's like the over reliance on tools. So it's like I'll still go through like each page template and you can find things that a lot of these tools don't pick up or like they'll have
Got it.
false
Yeah.
positives. So it's like in SEMrush it'll be like we can't crawl this page, but then Google can. So it's just like you need to like know you need to look at data from multiple sources before really
Got it. Got it. Yeah.
understanding things.
Yeah, that's why I also rely on Screaming Frog more than those site audits in SEMrush and Ahrefs.
Yes.
Yeah, Peter, I read something interesting on your profile, and I want to ask you if you can share more about your no BS communication style with clients. How does it work and improve client relationship?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think SEO gets a bad rap for kind of being nebulous or, like you mentioned before, kind of black box. And I just try to be as transparent as possible. And they're able to see what I'm working on. They're able to see the backlinks. I'm not like hiding them. Like we're getting all this nefarious work. Like they're able to see all my work. I'm communicative. I do monthly like reports. I also do weekly slash bi-weekly reports. Some clients don't require them because sometimes they don't want to be as hands-on, but they're so interested. So I just try to like be transparent and like treat someone how I want to be treated. And I like to sleep well at night knowing that I
Yeah.
like
Did your work
definitely
well?
yeah, I work well, and that's just like I think I just try to be empathetic and put myself in their shoes and try to understand their viewpoints and just see where they're coming from because it's like unfortunately a lot of them have been burnt like by SEOs or they overpromise and underdeliver. I was speaking to a gentleman yesterday and he's told me he's worked with 6 to 8 SEO people and like they haven't been able to deliver and like I like tell someone on a call, it's like if I can or can't do the work. It's like I don't want to get you start the work and not be able to deliver it because like that doesn't help either of us. So just trying to be a human being and not think like an SEO all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, true. I mean, there were situations, and I understand that part. I mean, even how do you handle when a client approaches you
Mhm.
and they have a goal, they want to utilize SEO for it,
Yeah.
and you can see it from far away that that goal cannot be achieved in the timeline or with SEO whatsoever. How do you respond to that situation?
actually had similar situation like that come up recently where I was approached by I think it's like a PR agency in basically the United Kingdom, and they thought they only needed backlinks. And then I
Mm-hmm.
looked at their on page and it's like they're missing internal linking opportunities. The title tags under optimized. They don't have related or like target keywords in their H1 tags. Google's crawling all these pages that it thinks that are actually links and they're really just hashtags. So it's like I try to figure out there's a difference between what they think they need versus what they actually need. So it's like I've done this whole on-page strategy for them to kind of educate them and just understand like I think as SEOs and even some business owners, it's like they've almost been oversold on like backlinks, 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 but it's like here they are, and it's like these websites aren't doing basic fundamentals. And actually posted about that on LinkedIn today, where it's like people want all these hacks, but it's like if you do the basics, you'll get 80% of the way there. Then it's like,
Yeah,
okay, like what else do I need to do to differentiate my client or my page to help me better rank in Google?
got it.
Yeah.
What do you see as a single most influential on-site or technical SEO factor on the page, but a single one? So I know that
Yeah.
other factors can correlate and they give you something like an impact, but one that could be like individual factor to be seen across the website.
Definitely title tags. I feel
Definitely
like
title tags.
they've
Yeah.
always been like the source of truth for Google,
True.
especially when they're crawling pages. And I mean, it's also what's shown in like the search engines too. So it's like this is the first thing the user's gonna see when they're in a search engine. They're gonna see like the faith comp, but they're also gonna see title tags, and it's like I have always considered them the single most like influential thing because I've done changes where you make even just move around a few words or characters and you'll see changes, and like they're like the thing that's gonna have the quickest impact too. So it's like yeah, definitely.
What's your opinion on should title tags and H1s be the same?
Ooh, good question. I mean, personally, I use the H1 as another opportunity to kind of use partial keywords, but a lot of CMSs, like I work with Sitecore, it's like it's gonna be the default. So it's like if you can utilize that opportunity, but if you can, it's not a big deal. But I like know like when I can to utilize that to target some other secondary or partial keywords, but still are related to like the main theme of the page.
And have you seen any correlations in Search Console? Have you tested it out? Does it give you those partial keywords? Do you receive any visits on a website from search queries using those partial keywords? Could you tie that to an H1 or the title? For instance, have you done some
Yeah.
experiments around that?
Um, I have not done specifically on the H1s, but I did run a few SEO tests a while back with title tags and H1. It's more so title tags where I moved some keywords around and I was able to see that ones where we kind of moved the more important keywords closer to the beginning, we saw increases in clicks over those pages versus the control where we just left it. So I think
Awesome.
I've definitely seen changes and improvements.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. Good to know.
And Peter, I know that you had a chance to work with some e-commerce brands
Yes.
and do SEO for them. So there are platforms like Shopify, which has a lot of limitations. So how do you overcome them for platforms like Shopify, for example? The challenges.
Yeah, sure. So I mean I did a Shopify audit for an individual recently, and I think Shopify out of the box is good, but there's a ton of issues as far as like when they use related links, the link to the canonical link, or like I'm trying to think, but it's essentially the way they have it set up is that they're not really going to use the preferred URL. So they're running the canonical issues or like pagination issues where it's like they're maybe not linking to the last page in the series or the first page in the series links to like slash page one when it should just be the default. So I mean, I've run into those things and um,
There are many
sorry.
built-in templates in Shopify where when you go to the collection page and the
Yes.
products that are listed there have a URL that's slash
Yep.
collection name slash product name, and you just want it to lead to slash product. So instead of having slash collection name slash etc. And they are both using that URL which is on that page. They're using it as a canonical. They are
Yep.
using it as a direct URL of the page. They are using it in schema if you set it up, etc. But initially, when you just build a Shopify website, when you use a template, the robots.txt file will by default
Yep.
drop those pages from crawl. It will disallow them to crawl. So I've seen this numerous times where people basically have launched a website, they have a collection page, they have it listed as those URLs,
Mhm.
but because those are disallowed to crawl, they basically see the home page, the collection pages is empty. So there were a ton of issues. I mean, out of the box, Shopify is good. It's great
Yeah.
for e-commerce. It's really easy to use. It can be optimized well. But out of the box, if you don't pick out a template properly, if you don't know that these things can happen, like specific pain points that you need to resolve pre-launch, you're going to have much difficult time in resolving them later on, because
Yeah.
that way Shopify for a page that has a shop that has 100 products can generate 500,000 URLs,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's a lot of things, a lot of URLs that bots need to crawl and to get to index. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I think it serves a point where it's like Shopify is selling to small business owners, and these people don't care about SEO. They just care about
exactly.
getting their products up. So I think in that case it works, but there's still a lot of areas to improve.
What CMS would you opt for if you were working for an e-commerce store that has, let's say, 10,000 products and more? Would you go for some existing CMS, or would you probably opt for developing a custom one?
I'd probably go with a uh, like a standard, like a Shopify, because custom is just a lot of work. And unless you're like a major like retailer, you probably don't have the energy and resources to continually debug and fix the issue. So it's like I definitely like Shopify that like it's you can configure it out of the box. But I think like I've done WordPress for like e-commerce, and I think that one's decent too. But I probably wouldn't recommend it for like 10,000 pages. But like I
Got
feel
it.
like I mean Shopify is like the only one I can think of, so I'd probably go with that.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay, so I've seen some e-commerce brands like having a properly optimized websites in
Mhm.
terms of on-site and technical SEO.
Yeah.
They don't have a blog section,
Yeah.
like they don't write any content, but they build a lot of backlinks, and
Yeah.
actually all the category pages are ranking on top of Google search. Do
Yeah.
you think that having a blog isn't necessary when it comes to an e-commerce brand?
Good question. Yeah. So whenever I work with an e-commerce brand, I tend to go for a blog. And the reason being, I think it's important to address different parts of the buyer's journey. Obviously, now with AI overviews, it's a bit more complicated, but I think it's important to educate people on. So if someone's top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, you're covering all the intent. So basically, you're the source of truth if anything they want for that specific topic. And I think also what you do is you get those internal links, those contextual internal links, so you can go back to the collection pages and the home page and even individual product pages and power those up. So I think as long as the content's useful to the user, it's going to be beneficial. And if you're just creating content just for SEO with like no really intent, I think that's what matters. And like on the blog post, you're kind of funneling people back to like the product and collection pages and just, I think, yeah. So is it necessary? No. Will it be beneficial? 100%. So
Yeah,
if
okay, thanks
short, long, short
for
answer.
clarifying.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah,
ever
yes,
clicked on a
because
link in a blog post and bought something? in
Yeah, I
your
don't.
life? I just want to know
In my
that.
life, yes, probably, but I personally I don't read a ton of blogs now. It's mostly SEO blogs.
Got
But
it.
I've never been like, ooh, I'll buy something now. But yeah,
Yeah,
And
because I've seen.
one more
yeah,
thing. I want to know
Shoot,
this.
shoot.
When you share, so for instance, you don't read a lot of blogs. You share SEO, you read SEO blogs.
yeah.
When you find a piece that you find interesting and you want to share it on
Mhm.
social media or anywhere, do you copy paste the URL from the address bar or do you
Yeah.
click the share button? What type of
Oh,
person are you?
good question. I mean, I usually just copy and paste the URL.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not someone that like, here's a blog I'm reading and share it on Facebook. I'm like, I don't.
Yeah.
I might just be my mentality too. It's like I feel like if you're in the older generation, you're probably used to copying, pasting. Where it's like if you're younger, you're like, oh, I'll just share this because like they didn't have to copy and paste anything before.
I think you need
Yeah,
to be somewhere in the middle because very old
yeah,
people will not copy paste the URL. Also, very
yeah,
young people
exactly.
won't.
When you track data, like for instance, I know that you worked with analytics before,
Yeah.
so you know that you can set up an event to see if anyone clicked on a button to share a certain blog post anywhere, and you're tracking shares. But if they click to copy paste the URL from the URL bar, that's outside the client side of analytics, so you cannot even see if that was shared or wasn't shared. Yes, you can go to Facebook with URL inspector to see if there was any data, if that was shared anywhere across the web, but still not get that data back into analytics. And this was one of the major issues that I had. Like they are, we have that event tracking. They're not sharing. They're not
Yeah.
sharing. No, man, they probably are, but hear me out. We're like a decade older than you, so people probably just copy paste.
Yeah, I think now too is a lot of the analytics platforms are giving you less and less data. So it's just
Yeah,
it's not
true.
if you're trying to track anything with cookies now as a marketer, it's very tough.
Have you tried at any point in time to track for which keyword the person directly for which keyword the person landed on your website from Google search?
Like you mean just tracking the keywords individually and rank tracking?
Search query that they put in before they clicked and visited your website to have that data tracked in Google Analytics.
Uh,
So
no.
you can connect the keyword, the query with specific pages or specific user groups, segments,
I
or whatever.
mostly use Search Console. I mean, on my work we use Adobe Analytics, but I'm not a fan, so I'm more using Search Console to seeing like what keywords are driving the traffic.
Cool,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Okay, so we spoke about e-commerce. Now I want to move to local SEO and
Yeah.
ask you what makes local SEO so powerful for a business and how do you ensure a local business can compete with larger players?
Yeah, so I mean, I think with local SEO, it's generally going to be depending on the niche. Obviously, there's some caveats, but it's going to tend to be less competitive because you're only competing with people in your general vicinity. And most people, how they make decisions now is they Google reviews or they're on their phone or mobile, and like they're gonna put your address into their phone. So it's like if you don't have a Google business page, you're basically your competitors are gonna take your traffic. So I think it's very important there. Most people now, it's like they complete most transactions online. They're not like obviously I'm dating myself, but many years ago there was the yellow pages and you use that. So it's like
Yeah.
that's how now people are looking for the fastest, most least frictionless way to complete their things. And it's like if you have a website and you educate people and you're there, you can definitely be competitive. But going back to like competing with like the bigger players, one thing I've noticed is that the geo pages tend to do pretty well. So if you're based in Boston and you want to rank in, I guess, Miami, you may create like a geo page, which I think they still rank pretty well, but ultimately you're going to get more traffic if you can set up a physical location because I feel like the majority of the traffic at this point goes to the map pack. Most people sometimes won't even read an organic result, but some people sometimes they want that additional clarification or like social proof to be like, okay, this person is ranked here. Like, can I trust them? So they'll still go to the website. So I think it's important to like, ideally, if you have the option to get another location, do it. But location pages still do pretty well because some people have these super long-term queries, and if you're like showing up for that stuff, you can still rank
Yeah, and
and
what
get
do you think
traffic. Yeah.
about GMB profiles that do keyword stuffing, such as, for example, you have a dentist in Houston,
Yeah.
Texas, and their Google My Business name is like Smile Dental slash Dental Implants Houston TX. What do you think about that?
I mean, it definitely works because Google, I think, highly uses the name of the business slash if there's a keyword in there to rank. It's probably something I wouldn't recommend long term because I might be weary of them maybe suspending that listing, but I guess
Yeah.
if you can get away with it, great, but it's probably not. I could see it more of as like a rent ranking or like a pay per lead, but it's
Hmm.
just like it's not going to help the business long term, especially if they get penalized.
And it's very easy to like you can easily like make an edit from your Google
Yes.
account when you see the profile, but also what helps that profile gets, let's say, it won't be penalized, but Google will just check all the info and then replace with the right information. There is this
Yes. True.
Google rehearsal submission form for local businesses that you can submit directly like a ticket to Google,
Mm.
write all the info, and Google will like I've actually tested this, and in less than a week, Google fixes all the keyword
Wow.
staffing and removes their yeah. It's very easy to do, and basically how it helps, like if your client is at the sixth place and there
Mm.
are two keyword staffers at five and fourth
Yeah.
position, when you like fix them, your client will automatically jump for two places. So it's very easy strategy to move your local business up when you have competitors that are doing keyword
Oh,
stuffing.
so you're a snitch, right?
Oh, so you're going
You're a
and editing
snitch.
their
So
business?
you're a
Oh, that's fair.
snitch.
Yeah, man. That I mean, it,
The- I want,
bro,
I want,
that was one of the strategy. I mean,
I get it. So yeah, you're a snitch. We got it. So
yeah,
the
exactly.
thing is, in Google, actually in Google guidelines, when you want to form a GDP page for someone, they ask of you, for instance, you have a multi-location business,
Yeah.
and you have it somewhere in Boston, somewhere in Miami, and one in Washington.
Yeah.
They won't allow you to have the same name on all three listings. You need to change the names to what each one of them has to have a unique name,
Yeah.
and the only
Yes,
way
right.
you can have it unique is to have a location in the title
Yeah.
to differentiate it. I mean, I don't know. If you don't want to change the brand name, what is the only thing that you can add to differentiate it? Add one, or add some
Location.
form like let's if you have some like name formatting to add like G16, a similar thing that a company here in Serbia, a franchise here in Serbia does. But if but it's intuitive for people to add a location to
Yeah.
that listing, to that title, and they don't know how the other way to do it. But Google also in their guidelines says that you should not and cannot do that because you can get suspended for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's more of an issue on Google's end that you cannot just switch a GDP profile and name it like this is a franchise
Yeah.
or this is a multi-location business and just replicate this name but use other locations. When you want to create a GVP, even if you want to create, you need to turn it into a franchise because you're basically going to add first your main location, then to add other locations as well. So still, you're starting as a single location business, then adding new profiles. It's complicated, I know, and it's not intuitive, and many people do that type of title adding like
Yeah.
location to titles just because of that. But then you have snitches like this guy.
I mean, I joke local SEO is like the wild, wild west. It's just like
Yeah,
anything goes. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
Yeah,
true,
yeah,
true,
yeah.
yeah.
true.
Yeah, and do you guys know that you can create practitioner listing? For example, if you
Interesting.
own like a dental office, like then you can register yourself with your
Oh
name as a
yeah,
practitioner.
yeah.
And look, just hear me out. What I figured out, there was one locksmither from Toronto, and he has a locksmithing company. And
Mhm.
basically, what he did, he created a practitioner listing and he named it Emergency Locksmith Toronto. And basically, it ranked number one when someone from Toronto types
Yeah.
Emergency Locksmith. I mean, it's a cheat, but it worked.
Yeah, title
Yeah.
tags in those cases work very well. I
So, yeah,
actually,
Peter, it is a Wild West out there.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah. So yeah, another question that I wanted to ask you is what's your approach to optimizing content for SEO, especially in competitive industry like finance or tech?
Yeah, I mean, I generally start my process by I use Surfer SEO, which give a shout out to them. I've been using them for years, but essentially I'll kind of see I'll basically find the most relevant competitors from there, and then I'm using ChatGPT to basically scrape one possible scrape their websites, look for all their headers, and then basically create a content ally from that, get rid of any redundant headers, but also ask it to find any content or topics they're not mentioning. I use that. And then, I mean, right now I'm using some AI content, but essentially what I'll do is I'll then use ZimWriter, create that content. Add all the keywords Surface mentioning, put that in the article, and it comes out. And then what I like to do now is I'll do like a key takeaways at the top because I feel like I mentioned, a lot of people just want the information faster, but then that still presents the option for them to still read. So it's like people were afraid it's like, oh, if they're gonna find the answer, then leave. And it's like there's nothing wrong with that if they're completing what you want them to do. So I mean, I'll do that. I'll try to use some semantic HTML, so like making unordered versus ordered lists, making bulleted tables when possible, using images and using videos. But I mean, I'm not doing anything crazy. Like, I feel like the basics are not insane, but I've seen a lot of people miss the basics. I mean, I'll sometimes use table of contents, and sometimes those links get indexed, and you kind of get additional traffic for those jump links. Um, I do that, and then I'll use make sure to link to the most relevant not competitors, most relevant pages. Make sure like the focus keywords in the title tag, H1 first 100 words of like the beginning, a few times in the body, towards the end, and then just using any relevant entities. Also using NLP when you're using like this FAQ question. So it's like I don't know, like I'm trying to think of one where it's like what is the engine in a car called? And it's like the engine in a car is called such and such. So it's just making it as easy as possible for Google to understand, removing any friction because as smart as we think Google is, there's still like areas where it's just dumb. So it's like you need to make it as easy as possible. So I would probably just say that and really utilizing those contextual internal links. It's like um, those are going to be sometimes a differentiator because obviously like backlinks are important, but it's hard to get backlinks. So it's like you can help square that up by getting maybe more supporting content or going more in depth or giving the person to answer the information faster or these contextual internal links. So I'd say that's how I generally approach things. But obviously, some industries you need a heck ton of backlinks. So maybe trying to use digital PR or guest posts to kind of like get up there.
Yeah. And what do you
Yeah.
think about the backlinks? What do you consider as a quality backlink?
Ooh, good question. At this point, I'd probably say a website that the traffic trend is generally moving up. It's on topic. There's not like any traffic isn't crashing or tanking. The contextual, I mean, the their backlink profile as far as the anchor texts are mostly on brand. They look natural. They're not linking out to like any suspect websites. I mean, I think sometimes you can get away with some of it because you like Google will neutralize it, but I think just ideally content that you go to the website, it doesn't look suspect. So we've all seen those sites where it's like, this is clearly like just for SEO. So I think it's just you want to ideally get some natural links in there, but I think at the same time, like a few guest posts is not going to crash your site.
Do you consider so you mentioned context and topic.
Yeah,
Out of context and topic are not metrics on their own
yeah,
that you can just go out and get from a tool like
yeah,
Ahrefs or SEMrush or whatever. Compared to every other metric that you can take into account from any of those tools, so
yeah.
Ahrefs, SEMrush, etc., any of those big crawlers, uh, how do you, I mean, do you value more context and content and topics around it or the metrics? If you, let's say, if the traffic was low, if
Yeah.
the domain was young, if they are tied to some suspect website, suspicious websites, because they could be either generally
Yeah.
earning links or those links were made because they, I don't know, did an SQL inject, or they did something with their feed or whatever. So what will be like a decision factor on your end if that website should be used for a backlink or not?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, I take in a variety of things, but if the backlink is super authoritative and it has a good amount of referring domains and like backlinks, and one or two of those links is not going to kill you. I think what SEOs tend to over focuses on is like Google is going to take into account your whole profile. So it's like you may have some suspect links, but it's like if you had all these natural links, it's like that's going to offset that. And like what I'll like to do when I get each new client is I'll start with like a press release so I can get those like branded anchors and just like some authority and foundational links. So it's like if you get a few bad links, it's not going to tank the site. So, but overall, I think it's like if it looks like a good backlink and it's like it's gonna power you, great. But ideally, you want to like focus on both the short term and the long term.
Hmm. And if we exclude the context and everything and only look at the metrics,
Yeah.
which one would you say that is the most important metric for a website that you want to get a link from?
Mm,
DR, organic
good
traffic, number of
question.
referring domains.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I mean I think it's hard to look at just one metric at this point
Yeah.
There's no
because
one, yeah.
backlink sellers and just people have basically inflated DR and all this stuff so you can
Yeah,
fake
that
it,
can
Yeah.
but
be.
I mean, even like the traffic on some of these things on like third-party tools, you can look at Ahrefs and SEMrush and the traffic looks completely different. So I think it's important to take into a few an account. I mean, if I had to say maybe referring domains, but even
Yeah,
that,
I
it's
know.
like
I mean, it
it's
was like a
hard.
tricky question,
Yeah,
but
you're fine.
you got it right. You got it
Yeah.
right. You
Okay,
I
cannot
would
look
good.
at
rather
one
go
metrics.
with again with a combo of like ratio
Yeah.
between backlinks and domains.
Yeah.
But if
Same.
it was a single one, it should be linked domains.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
I would
Okay,
probably
cool.
focus on that category because linked domains would actually show me if it's a PBN or something. It could show me if it's a PBN or if it's just a bad neighborhood for that website. So linked websites, not the referring
yeah,
domains.
I mean,
Yeah.
something I've also seen is like, and that's something I necessarily look for, but it's also some validation where it's like some sites they have an insane ratio of do follow
Yeah.
versus no follow, and it's like it's not. I don't look for like. There's people that be like, "What's the perfect ratio?" And I was like, "There's no such thing," but
Yeah,
it's
no
like
such thing.
you can clearly tell if like they're trying to manipulate things.
I would just have it flagged on like if I have more. then 10%. No, if I have less than 10% of no follow links for
Yeah,
this
it
website,
might be
then
suspect.
I can, yeah, it could be suspicious. So I would raise a flag if I have less than 10% for that referring domain. So a guideline, a flag, a milestone, however you
Yeah,
want to
some
call it, but
criteria.
not like specific ratio that you should
Yeah,
keep or
agreed.
something.
Yeah.
Also, I have another question for you
Okay.
regarding backlinks.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about having more links coming from a single website? I've noticed that some big websites they tend to get more links from the same domain, but they make sure that the every second or the third or the fourth link doesn't come in some specific time period. For example, on
Mhm.
every 6 months they can repeat the link. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think it depends on the domain and the authority, but I could just see the benefits being less and less. I would say maybe there's some benefit if it's to a different page, but if you're sending all of them to the homepage over and over, that's just like I'd rather try to like get it from different domains than the same one. It also kind of plays in your favor too, because if Google's seeing you're only getting all these links from one domain, they're gonna be like, what are they doing? Are they doing this intentionally? Like, it's kind of like not natural in a way, but I've also seen ones where like they'll have one page and it's like in the footer and it ends up like a million links from one site. So it's like I think just trying to like be somewhat
Mm-hmm.
natural.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Okay.
naturally you'll get more links from even if you built a single link in terms of like you wrote a guest post.
Yeah.
Now that one can be in a sidebar in latest post, so a link that post is linked. If that
Yeah.
post has like an excerpt and a link happens to be there, I mean those things happen and they are natural. You can from one single link you can get five from a link on one single referring domain you can get 5 to 6 backlinks
Yeah.
by default.
Yeah.
So keeping that ratio 1 to 1 was never actually an option. I mean,
Yeah.
in long
Agreed.
term,
Yeah.
but repeating ones, that's a whole new beast to tackle. So
Yeah.
if you have in Search Console, whenever you publish an article on your blog,
Mhm.
you have a sudden spike, not a spike in traffic, but it
Yeah.
starts generating a bump because it gets indexed, it gets new search queries, and it gets traffic. After a while, it starts to drop. You're
Yeah.
refreshing content, you're adding new content, etc. If you refresh that article by adding some new content to it, then the same curve will go up and down.
Yeah.
But if you wrote a guest post on a specific website with a backlink in it, you basically created an article there, you will get that spike in traffic, so or spike in metrics for that
Yeah.
link backlink that you're generating. But once that blog post is if that blog post wasn't refreshed, if it wasn't done anything to it, after 3 or 6 months it will again start to drop. So there is no new metrics or no new gains that could be actually transferred. I mean, there are. I'm just saying like overall. So if you would do something like that, then you can put it in a basket like, hey, my link on that website makes the most impact anywhere between 6 and 12 months. So
Yeah.
anything between 6 months and a year. So I made the most impact with it in the first 6 months. It could get up to 12, but if I do it after a year and make a new article there, that article might bring in some. I mean, that article and that backlink can bring some new input, but that again is a bump because you're again using it on a repeated referring domain. It's much better that you do it from a new one and get new
Agreed.
fresh set of signals
Yeah.
rather to repeat ones.
Yeah.
It still would work and it can be seen in Search Console. Those not the effects from it can be seen but not tied to a specific metric.
Mhm.
But still, repeating once can do good. After 6 months, not sure.
Yeah.
After a year, could be, but it's always better to go with a new one rather than just repeating the old.
Agreed. Yeah.
You get to a point if you're a large website where you have like 10,000 referring domains that you cannot find on a place where you can get published. But still, if you're a
Yeah.
website that has 10,000 referring domains, you're probably already a well-known brand that's going to be published around numerous websites. You're a well-known tool that people will refer to or talk about on their websites, in their blogs, in their guides, or whatever. So it's much, you will get more earned links once you get bigger.
Yeah.
And those links can be repeated once. You don't know, you never know. But again, if you're going for it, that you will build links and that you focus on it, after 2000 referring domains, you're getting you're gonna have a problem with finding new ones according to the metrics or thresholds that you make. So repeating old ones is a good way to mend that.
Yeah.
But again, it should be used in that case, and probably after a year since you published it. I mean, that's just my opinion. It's based on some data, but you can never actually directly correlate it to it because you don't have a specific type metric, and you cannot isolate it from all other signals like traffic on that website, clicks on those links, referral traffic coming from people who clicked on a link in that blog post to go to your website. You can't isolate it completely to do a test, to do a proper test.
Yeah, I could see a reason to do it because you lose backlinks over time. So it's like maybe this was an authoritative domain and you lost a
Yeah,
backlink, so you get it back. But I
that's
definitely don't.
also a
Yeah,
reason why would I do it. Yeah. But at that point, it's basically counted as a new one, right?
yeah, yes.
Not a repeated one.
Ooh, good question. I mean, biggest ROI, at least for me, is a lot of just around the content and the technical SEO. But I mean, I've worked with clients where sometimes all their pages are below like 3 to 4 levels. So I'll do like create an HTML sitemap so I can get those sites higher in the hierarchy. But generally, it's going to depend on the site. Some small sites, it's maybe some changes in the title tags and more contextual internal links. Larger sites, it could be how Google's crawling the site, route canonical issues, making sure like alternate, I think fixing those like Search Console issues as far as like making their job easier so it's crawling the right things and prioritizing. So I think it just really depends on the site, where they're currently at, have they used an SEO, a variety of things. But yeah, generally, um, content, technical SEO, maybe improving user experience is going to have like the most benefit. I definitely think page speed's still a thing, but I think ideally you want to be faster than your competitors. And I've said this, and it's nice Google came out to say this, like people over focus on core web vitals, and it's like obviously you want a fast site, but you also need to be realistic where it's like, is it fixing it by zero point 0.2 milliseconds gonna like have this massive increase in SEO? So
That's a controversial thing that I wanted to ask. So in this case, page speed, yeah, I figure it's really good, and you should focus if a website loads fast, yes,
yeah,
you should focus on it. But we're talking about page speed
yeah,
in times where I currently here have 500 megabytes upload and download.
yeah,
My 4G on my mobile has 25 megabits upload download. At my home, I have a gigabit.
yeah,
So what are we talking about? How large could that page be for me not to load it under 3 seconds? And we're talking about commercial ISP packages. So for that, a website that has a web page that has 35 megabytes
yeah,
can be loaded in less than 3 seconds. If I'm on 4G, it will take me, let's say, 6.
yeah,
But we are addressing, if you want to do those core web vitals to have that score, your page needs to be under 3.5 megabytes, meaning you're directly limiting me to not use specific media files, media types. Yes, WebM is cool. WebM is cool for video. WebP for picture. Okay, that can be all converted. Yes, they can hold basically the same quality. But what if we're talking about this is my collection page on which I want to list 100 or so products
yeah,
because it covers my end line. It increases my chances of conversions and sales. But I can't do that. I need to limit it. If I add an event tracking, for instance, who had clicked and added this to cart, each individual event carries with itself a payload that can be a certain kilobytes or something into Google Analytics data layer. So at this point, it would be an issue, and it was brought as an issue back in 2013, 2014 when they started with page speed. But today, where we have 500 slash 500 megabits upload, download, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I think it's just relative to your audience and like
Exactly. So if it's relative to your audience, why should be it considered as a factor overall on all geolocations? I could see it if it was in some area where you still don't have that ISP coverage
yes.
of those uploads and download speeds. I mean, I'm not in Korea. Korea has insane downloads and
Yeah.
upload speeds, but still these are common ones,
Yeah.
commercial ones, and the page speed. I think it's now on V10 or V11 in terms of how it handles weights to that scoring, but
Mhm.
still doesn't give it hasn't changed much. It's still, if you're above 3.5 megabytes, you're considered a slow page to load. It's
Yeah.
not in it with times. So in that case, page speed, meh. I know, but that's just my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Peter, back when you were speaking about the SEO audit, you mentioned quite a lot of metrics. And I
Yes.
want to ask you, how do you convey the value of SEO to clients who may not understand the metrics? What's the most important data to show them?
I think it's important to connect each recommendation to what impact it'll have on revenue or just go back to their bottom line. So it's like if say certain pages aren't getting a ton of traffic, you can be like, well, improve your title tags and that'll help you get more traffic and then ideally more people on your website and then that can improve your conversion rate. Um, but yeah, I mean, I always try to each thing I do should have an impact. Like I mentioned, all image tags, fixing that are important, but like if
Mhm.
like improving the crawl depth or like improving like getting rid of the I don't know rel canonicals or fixing like some crawling is going to have a high impact. I'll focus on that.
Mhm. Cool. Thanks for answering. And if
Yeah,
you
no
can
problem.
share what's been one of your most challenging but rewarding client projects in terms of SEO results?
Um, yeah, can I? Do you mind if I share my screen?
Of
Yeah,
course.
I have a thing prepared. I mean, these weren't too challenging, but I guess I had pretty good experience. So this was like I mentioned, this was the e-commerce space, and this client basically competes in mostly related to religious books. So um, I had pretty good success. I basically audited their whole site and improved a lot of like the title tags, collection pages, and then we added internal links on like the collection pages as well as created a blog strategy. But I basically increased their overall search traffic like 14%. Non-branded increased 167%, and then um, was also able to have a significant improvement in keywords ranked in the top 100. But then also, last not least, revenue potential. So I increased revenue by like 24%. There's also ones where like I've increased the organic conversions like 203%. So I think, like we mentioned, SEO metrics are important, but you need to tie it back to what's going to make the client more money. Traffic and rankings are great, but if they're not making more money, they can't pay their bills. So it's like I would say those things.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's that's why I asked you the question regarding organic
yeah,
regarding tying a specific keyword, specific
yeah,
search query to the bottom line. For
yeah.
instance, did this search query bring me more sales to of this product, specific product, which is a product on e-commerce store? Now, Google never allowed that
Yeah,
because when you go to analytics, initially analytics, you had difference
it's not
between
mentioned. Yeah.
page and event hits. Like event hits is specifically for clicking, adding to cart. Page hits was coming in from which channel, which page. But you
Hmm.
still couldn't send a query, search query from it. There were ways back in the days, like in 2010, you had first types of deep linking that basically people utilized. We had options where you can add a specific parameter to that payload to a cookie, like this was a previous, I stored this from your Google browser before you clicked it and sent it
Yeah.
over. But if Google sees that in Google Analytics, you're immediately going to get suspended and whole thing
Yeah.
deleted. But yeah, there are still ways that you can do it. I've seen it even in GA4 because you basically could tie it to a user ID or so. I mean, they already have that user ID, their session ID, they have event ID. You can tie everything to it without personally identifying a buyer. You won't know that it was, I don't know, Peter Rota, but you will know that a person who typed in this keyword and came in from this channel bought in this product. It could be done, and still avoiding those, and still respecting GDPR compliance with it. Have you
Yeah.
done anything black hat or
Uh,
explored at least
I mean,
in
not
terms
like
of learning about it, understanding it, not specifically using it?
not like that specifically, but I mean, in the past, I bought safe links or I did like GSA or I mean, I consider this gray hat. I mean,
Yeah,
I've
it's
done
kind
like
of it's
I've done like
grayish.
PBNs and but I've never like been someone where it's like I'm gonna hack your website and inject stuff. Like that's what I consider black hat, where it's like I've seen people like a business near me, they were new and someone literally edited the information and changed everything and made it a locksmith. So that's I consider that stuff more black hat, like so yeah.
And what's your thoughts? I mean, what do you consider PBNs are a gray zone?
Yes.
They are a gray zone. What do you consider a PBN that's what type of PBN? What are the things on that you see or metrics or stuff around PBN that you see that would make you flag it as black hat?
Hmm.
When you explore that PBN, when you find out, okay, I landed on this website, I see
Yeah.
it, it's a PBN, there are some factors that show me it's a PBN, but I still consider it white hat or consider it black hat.
I mean, maybe if you can, it's obvious that like the content is just really bad and they maybe have like sidebar footer links in the listing. Like I've seen sites where it's like they have tons of links in the sidebar on every page and it's like that's something Safe did where it's like here's all these footer links, I injected it, it's on every page. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be things to look for and maybe it's just like um it's super spammy,
But
so it's
yeah,
like
but those are
yeah,
all things that are subjective. So you're not
yes,
getting them from a crawl or from a tool.
yeah,
You need to look into it and find like a certain thing that will tell you, hey, this is a black hat or white hat, right?
yes, yeah, for
That's
sure.
so it's more again more of a subjective thing
Subjective.
when it comes to this. So I was asking because, for instance, if you some people would tell like I see an IP address and they have like C match classing. It goes three parts of IP address are completely the same and you just change the last part. Some go and say it's not a C, it's a full D, so go for full IP address if you see that they're matching. That's it. But to be honest, for instance, I'm an SEO consultant, like, and I do freelance, let's say. Plus, I'm into gardening, and I make a website where I'm just going to post my photos, write blogs. I mean, I'm old school. I would probably write blogs about gardening.
Yeah.
But also, at some point in time, I opened a company, Heroic Rankings, with a partner, and we built this. But still, all of those websites will probably be hosted with the same hosting provider on the same IP address because I'm using the same server that I'm using for years. So I have the same IP. And how is that that according to those things that should be flagged as a PBN, and if you consider a PBN with that metric as a black hat, then a lot of people are doing it as
Yeah.
black hat. So again, it's more of a subjective thing, and I just wanted to learn what are specific things that you see, and do you use something like an automate, not an automate, like a formula
Yeah.
based on some calculated data that's not subjective, but a specific like calculated data, and from that discerned, hey, this is a PBN, and I don't even want to look into it without opening a website. So just have a list of 100 websites and flag them, these are PBNs. What would be the metric if you would ever see one? Or metrics?
I mean, it probably could be like the domain IP address and like things like that. But I mean, I don't do a ton of PBNs now, but like
No, no,
back
no.
like
We were
10
just
years ago, it'd be
discussing
more.
like how would
Yeah.
you approach it in that case. But still, I
Yeah.
get you. It's a difficult thing to even consider. How would you automate it?
Yeah.
I would again go and do always go with that subjective approach. Hey, I'm gonna open a website and see what's there. Tag
Yeah.
page,
Yeah.
not a
You can,
single author
yeah. It's like,
mentioned. Links to I see a link to a website on it in a sidebar in somewhere in a site. I just click it, and when I open it, I see the previous website link there. So something like that.
yeah.
Exactly. Oh, that's cool. I mean, actually, it's not cool. Sorry, it's not cool. 10 to 1, 10 to 1 should be considered. 100 to 1, it's again okay, but 1,000 to 1, that's not.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Three more questions left for you, Peter.
Okay.
First one is you've led SEO teams in various companies.
Yeah.
How do you foster collaboration across different departments to ensure SEO success?
Yeah, I mean, I work a lot with like developers on a daily basis, so I think it's a lot of just educating them what we're doing, what's the realistic expectation of the ticket, um, and like what is considered done. So I work with a lot of them there. I help kind of educate other SEO. I mean, some of my other people I work with, so it's like I'll often share SEO articles from like Search Engine Land, Search Engine Journal. But I think it's just
Okay.
being able to accurately communicate and having the communication be in a specific area. So if like we're working on a GR ticket, make sure all the communication is in that GR ticket. Or like we also use Workfront, which is similar. So it's like making sure all the communication is in a centralized location and not across four different mediums. So you're like, what was going on? So just tracking everything.
Oh, cool. So, like, educating your people is the key to a success. Let's say it like that.
Yeah, educating them and just understanding why we're doing each things, and a lot with like upper management is like telling the story of why we're doing something, what's the expected result, like, and just basically talking, speaking in their business language. So as SEOs, sometimes we speak in like redirects or like status codes,
Yeah.
and it's like they want to know like how this traffic will make their site more visible. So it's just like speaking in layman's terms and get rid of SEO jargon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool, cool, thanks. So also, what I saw on your LinkedIn is this free video SEO
yeah.
audit. So I wanted to ask you if you can tell us more about that and how it serves as an effective lead magnet. Do you like get a lot of these requests, and like is this something that's time consuming for you?
Yeah, I mean, I essentially the reason I set it up is like I think at least on LinkedIn everyone's selling a service, so I'm trying to at least get something that's very low committal, free, and essentially you're doing two things. You're helping the client get their needs, you're educating them, and you're basically establishing yourself as an expert. And it's like, why am I going to do all this stuff when I can just pay someone else? So I mean, I've gotten a good amount of inquiries from it. I think I would probably get more if I had my hours open during the day, but I mentioned I work a full-time job, but I still do get a good amount from like some businesses trying to like educate them. And yeah, I mean, I just try to provide value and like no strings attached. So it's like if they got value from it, great, but
Yeah.
it's like just be helpful and not expecting something in return.
Yeah,
if
doing a
they
great
if they
recruit.
see value in that, in the way you communicate those issues and your ideas to resolve them in that video or anything, they would definitely choose you. I mean, that's the whole point of lead magnet. They
Yeah,
find
for sure.
a person that communicates and then can vocalize the issues behind it,
Exactly.
and you feel safe. This person already knows. I don't need to go with this video to someone else.
Yeah.
If it's a price or that we're discussing that other agency might not see, or prioritize those issues that you saw in that you mentioned in that video or anything. So, but it's
Yeah.
always difficult to scale it that way. That's
Yeah.
why we
Yeah.
ask. So, what do you do when you have an inquiry and you can't complete an audit? Do you have like some queue for it, or is it do you have some queue for it? Do people have to wait for it? Do you always get every inquiry done in time? Every letter
I
done in
mean,
time?
it's mostly like the video audit, so it's like I'll
Mm-hmm.
just do like a quick one, but there's
Mm-hmm.
been ones where
Mm-hmm.
I'll do a full audit, but it's generally just to give them an idea of what they could expect if they use me, some tips, and kind
Mm-hmm.
of send them
Mm-hmm.
on their way. And if they want, like I'm not hard selling, so I just try
Got
to
it.
basically
Oh,
like provide the
yeah.
value.
Got it.
Nice. Lastly, the question that I ask at the very end of the podcast, the like I ask this to every guest. So, what advice would you give to someone just starting an SEO and wants to grow into an expert?
Yeah, definitely right now is I would say develop your personal brand. I think everyone's doing SEO now, but to really set yourself apart, you want to position yourself as having unique takes and unique information and maybe how you difference from the crowd. So I would definitely say like since then, obviously you found me through LinkedIn, but I've been able to like get on so many things and get more clients. So I think definitely that and get a website, try to rank it, understand it. I think as SEOs, we try to understand read every best guy, everything of information, but you're gonna learn impactfully a ton more if you like basically like can get the information. And then also kind of try to get some initial, maybe offer some initial free client work to kind of like get proof of work, get case studies, and then position yourself and be like, because it's going to be much harder to sell yourself if you've never had any clients. So it's kind of very low committal. So I would definitely say all those.
Thanks, thanks.
Yeah,
And
no
do you
problem.
have any specific person that you're following and reading all the things that they've been posting that you can recommend for others to follow as well?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Lewis Smith. He does a lot of e-commerce SEO. I follow a ton of
Yeah.
stuff he puts out. I'm like blanking on of names right now, but I could definitely share it after. But there's like Anna York who does really some great stuff with AI. Um, I like know a lot of people's first names, but not their last names. But yeah, I mean, those are
Okay.
the first two that came to me. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. So, Peter, it's been a real pleasure having you, and thank you for taking your time to be here with us on this podcast.
Yeah,
It was a
appreciate you
very,
having me.
yeah, man, always like, and hopefully we'll speak more in the future and everything. So, thanks for being a part of this and helping us with all the idea with the podcast. Uh, yeah,
This
so
really, really
that's
went
it
well.
for
So I
today.
was really glad for this call and to actually find the person that has similar attitudes
Yeah.
towards some
Yeah.
things regarding those processes, tools, and development and stuff. And specifically the part that you mentioned, like learn at least some basics
Yeah.
of that other thing so you can understand it better.
Yeah.
The whole point is not only to see the bigger picture, but
Yeah.
to be able to communicate that with others. For instance, I have a development background. I worked with software. I mean, I developed software earlier, but I was never. I could never call myself a programmer. I'm a failed developer. I program things for myself.
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
know how to communicate in developers' language. So whenever something technical SEO related, I knew what I needed to tell them. It was not always just to tell them, "Hey, do this thing," but I want to achieve this thing. Let's get ideas on the table. And when they get me those ideas, I could understand them because I already know parts of that job, parts of their work. But when you gather when you work with UXers, when you work with designers, you don't need to know everything. You don't need to know the full terminology, but it's always good to know at least parts of their processes so you can better communicate those values and communicate issues and values behind them to other teams. And if you had worked in that field, I mean, if you by I already see that you know how to communicate and that you experience those things. And if you work with the development team for a while, not many people could actually accept that. So you could work with the development team for a decade and never actually accept that and never pick up that or learn anything behind their work. You will just see what works and just send them over. Here's the work order, here's the thing that I need, and that's it, get it done.
Yeah.
You could never challenge them. Hey, like, why did you use JavaScript for this? This could be.
Yeah.
Why did you use the JavaScript and use a button for this? You can do it with an href. Why the button?
Yeah.
Why the JS link here? But still, you're an SEO and you're basically learning. Need to know some things in development background so you can communicate that. And I really like that about you, by the way.
Hey,
Yeah.
appreciate the
Yeah,
compliment.
it's a
Thank
cool
you.
thing that you can to find people that can actually that have those traits because it's difficult to find them. Really, I mean, really difficult to find them. That's why
Yeah.
many SEOs talk about abstract things when it comes to SEO and stuff. They cannot like, okay, I know my traffic is falling. I know I have JavaScript issues. What does that mean? I have JavaScript issues. What's the
Yeah.
point of them? Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Since
getting knowledge is easy if you know where to look, but actually to test the knowledge practically on examples, on projects, it takes time and there are mistakes that you are going to learn from. So thank you for sharing all the valuable insights. It's super useful for everyone, and thanks for
definitely.
being a part here. Wishing you a great day, and yeah, talk soon, man.
Thank you, you too.
Bye, Peter.
Yeah, have a great day. Bye
Thank
bye,
you.
Peter.
Bye.